this is Time to Calibrate, where we discuss the world of watches and the insensible decisions we make so you don't have to. I'm Brent Robillard, aka Roby, and I'm joined for the very first time today by my esteemed colleagues Bob Allaby and Mark Levesque. Gentlemen, how are you?
Good. How are you doing this morning?
It's beautiful here. What about you?
Looking like a beautiful day happening here today. So looking forward to a little outside time.
Fantastic. How about you, Mark? What's it like over there in Montreal?
It's kind of cold, actually. Surprisingly enough, it's been warm the last few days, but yesterday and today, it's nice and cool and slept well for once.
Great. We've been in the throes of a heat wave here for the last little while. How about you, Bob?
We have just gotten through in the GTA area the flooding that happened earlier in the week. Lots of rain, but
I always saw that on the news.
Yeah, my area not so hard hit, but very close by. Lots of houses flooded, and hopefully they're on the upswing here now, though.
Well, my son is in Etobicoke, and he told me they were out of power for quite a while. Would that happen to you too?
No power outage here, luckily, but lots of the neighbors, their neighborhoods right around me, were without power for quite a while. Yeah.
Did you guys see the pictures Dan put up on Instagram? Dan Tannenbaum, watch parts motorcycle.
I did actually. Yeah. His basement was flooded out. Yeah.
Yeah, he's completely flooded out. It's unfortunate.
It's been a crazy summer. It's been incredibly hot here. And as you guys know, I just got back from a trip where it was crazy hot in Europe as well. So it seems to be sort of transcontinental. Hopefully we're going to have a little bit of a cooling off here. I do like it when it's, 25, 26, but when it's pushing, 32, 33, I do find that a little bit difficult to manage.
Yeah, you and me both. I can't do extreme heat. Family and I went to Greece a couple of years ago in July, and it was 45 in the shade.
Speaking of heat, what is everybody bringing on their wrist today?
Well, actually, I'm wearing my Omega Seamaster 300M. It's the 2531-8 Bond watch that first appeared in the Pierce Brosnan film Tomorrow Never Dies. Bought it to commemorate my retirement from education, actually.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
That's a great watch.
Absolutely. When I began to think about a watch to commemorate my retirement, I wanted sort of two things from it. One was to celebrate the end of something that had come to define me for so many years. But the second was also to have something that would sort of accompany me everywhere in the next stage of my life. I've always kind of admired those guys who could have just one watch. And maybe I'm not that guy yet, but I wanted to have something that could be that watch for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've been that guy with the one watch, but I'm like a perpetual one watch guy. So I a serial monogamist, right? I just go through one after the other, and I stick with it for a couple months, and then there's another one. But I don't have multiple watches. I just have, one after the other, trading or buying, selling, and been doing that for a long time. On my wrist, I've got the Christopher Ward Moon Glow with the pointer date. You guys might have seen that on Instagram when I posted it. It's a pretty cool watch. It was loaned to me by our friend Mike Pearson from Christopher Ward, and it's spectacular. It's much nicer in person than I would have thought it would have been. And how they've managed to minimize the reflections between the crystal and the actual glass that's covering those two big moons is absolutely stunning. I'm very impressed.
Wow.
Yeah, they've upped their game in the last few years, that's for sure.
What about you, Bob?
For me, I am wearing my newest acquisition, the Black Bay Pro. I've been really enjoying it. I've wanted this watch pretty well since it came out. I've tried it on a few times and finally pulled the trigger pretty well at the start of the summer here, and really enjoying it so far.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I actually saw a recent YouTube video from you, Bob. I think you were doing a Q&A where you were wearing that on your wrist.
Yeah.
Did you manage to find a bracelet for it, or are you still running on various straps?
Various straps right now. I actually went to one of the local Tudor boutiques to get it priced out, and it is quite expensive to buy outright brand new. I might do that eventually. I probably will eventually. If not, maybe see if I can score one pre-owned, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a fantastic watch. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I was just going to ask Mark if he's still enjoying his new hammy that he picked up there a while back.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Surprisingly enough, it's I've had it for a couple of weeks now. It's probably gained 3 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly impressed. It's on the same accuracy level as my Grand Seiko, which cost, I don't know, 8 times the price. But it's a lot of fun. It's nice and thin. It's light. It's not too big. It slides under a cuff if you need to. Not that anybody's wearing cuffs lately. But yeah, I love it.
Well, that's great. Listen, guys, because this is our first show, I thought it might be a great idea for us just to introduce ourselves a little bit, talk a little bit about who we are and what it is we do. And so maybe I'll throw it over to you, Mark.
Sure. I'm a logistics manager by day, watch collector, enthusiast by all the rest of the time. I've been into watches for as long as I can remember. Early memories of as a little kid receiving a Timex Ironman for Christmas, and Casio's thereafter, and then it's been watches ever since. I started seriously collecting in the 90s. There was a store in Montreal called York International that allowed trades. So I would, of course, being a young man, I didn't have the funds that could support this hobby. So I would accumulate and then trade them with this guy. And then we did that for a few years until the internet came around, and that opened everything up. Discovered brands I'd never heard of before. We were, with Time Zone and at the time WatchNet, which was really big. And we were having fun, talking about watches with people that are like-minded. Unfortunately, in my family or friends circles, no one else has inflicted with this disease as badly as I am. So finding these people on the internet has been a lot of fun. And in the late 90s, I started writing for Instinct Magazine as their watch reviews columnist, and did that for 5-6 years. And built my own website when magazines started disappearing in the mid 2000s. And ad revenue wasn't where it used to be, and ran my own blog for a while, and now I'm writing for Worn and Wound.
Oh, that's fantastic! I've read a lot of your articles actually on Worn and Wound.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I was actually up pretty late yesterday, finishing up a couple.
So, Bob, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I run and host the YouTube channel Time to Go Travel in Timepieces. I actually started off with an Ironman too, same as Mark. When I was a child, I was always thought that the whole Indiglo thing was so cool. So that was my first. Yeah,
my Ironman didn't have the Indiglo. It was big backlit, but gateway drug for a lot of people, I guess.
Went away until I got married, and my wife was always buying me a watch at Christmas and birthdays, fashion watches. And I started Googling things. Like I had a Hugo Boss chronograph with the seconds not aligned. So I started searching, how can I fix this? And all of a sudden I find these channels out there that are watch nuts like us, and went down that rabbit hole, and here we are today.
Well, I was an educator for 27 years till just recently.
Yeah.
I taught English and history. I did media arts and international studies, but all in the Ontario secondary school system. I've authored a couple of novels, but of course now I'm strictly a freelance writer and photographer. And as you guys know, I'm the editor of the online watch and lifestyle magazine, The Calibrated Wrist. So I suppose my origin story, if you can call it that, is really, it goes back to probably my dad. But I remember owning watches even as a child. I had that Timex Mickey Mouse, and then later a Batman Timex. I think that my younger brother had the Donald Duck and the Robin, and we were pretty close in age, so it was always similar gifting at Christmas and whatnot.
Yeah, I remember those. Those were cool.
But really, I think watches were the purview of my father. He wasn't really a wealthy guy, but he had like this maniacal fixation with watches. They were mostly those gold-plated quartz watches, like nothing too iconic. But yeah, I have these odd memories of him changing watch bands at the kitchen table with the tip of a razor blade.
Oh, wow.
He also had a thing for pens and fountain pens in particular. But oddly, the only surviving piece that I still have from him is kind of a tank-styled watch from the Swiss manufacturer Wenger. I think that my brother and sister might have a couple more. But watches that I recall asking my parents to buy me or later buying myself would be that Casio calculator watch. I think it was called the C80. But I also, like you guys, I had a Timex Ironman. But I have to admit, and this is full disclosure, there was a period in my teens where I was buying knockoff Gucci pieces at the flea market.
Can we even be friends?
Can we edit that part out?
No. We've got to find some flaw for Obi, man.
If there was actually a deep dive, it probably came back in like 2017, 2018, which is kind of late to the game, really. I was shopping for one of those Suunto cores to track my workouts and hikes. I think at the time I owned like a little Seiko quartz. It was my daily, and it was a gift from my wife. But somehow, I don't know how it happened, but I ended up looking at the Turtle, the SRP 777, and I bought it on a Boxing Day sale. And I think it's fair to say it was that watch that was my White Rabbit. When you pair that with kind of like the discovery of Instagram, as Mark was saying, and the quote unquote watch fam during COVID, I was pretty solidly hooked by the spring of 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roby, I've got to ask you. Now, all three of us have our Instagram profiles, and we all take pictures of watches. But for some reason, Roby, your pictures are completely outstanding. I mean, it's just spectacular stuff. Do you have a photography background, or is that another hobby of yours? Have you taken lessons? Have you taken courses? I mean, I take shots. Some of them I really like, and then I look at yours, and mine look like dog poop.
Well, I'm not sure that's entirely true, but thanks for the compliment. When I was 18, I had gone backpacking through Europe for a few months, and it was kind of like a gap year in between high school and going to university. And I remember picking up a Cosina 35 millimeter camera, and it was like one of those sort of duty-free places in Andorra of all spots. And it was at that point, I think, where I began to kind of experiment with photography, but it wasn't really a direct trajectory for me. I think that, I did it for a little while and then let it slide. And then my wife, many, many years later, got into photography, and then I started looking at these old cameras I had, and then I began picking them up again. And then it's almost like watch photography gave a purpose to it for me. And so I really began getting heavily back into it now. I really enjoy photography. It's one of my favorite pastimes.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I remember when I first started seeing your pictures online, a lot of it was canoeing shots with your hand and the water with the sunsets. And yeah, just another level.
Well, thanks. I mean, those ones I started too in the early days with just using my phone. Might have been at that point like little Samsung Galaxy 9, and but of course now I've kind of upgraded. I shoot Fujifilm, whether if that matters or whatever. But no, it's
oh yeah, I'm sure it does. A lot of people in our scope of interest have a hobby in photography as well, and lenses. And if you listen to TGN, sometimes half the podcast is about cameras, which is perfectly fine with me. I learn as it goes along, and it's fascinating listening to other people who are passionate about other hobbies as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I find it's just a second rabbit hole that I've fallen down. And both of them are fairly expensive rabbit holes: watches and cameras. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, there isn't one of these hobbies that isn't expensive. I mean, at one point a few years ago, I'd gotten a little out of control with the watches, and I started accumulating them instead of trading them up and then moving them around. And I figured, let me try to curb this a little bit, and I got into pocket knives. And rabbit holes.
That's just as bad a rabbit hole.
And then and I did pens. I tried pens for a while, and that also started becoming really expensive. I was like, this is ridiculous. So back to watches and what I truly love.
Fantastic. Mark, you said something really interesting a little while ago, how you sort of discovered the watch fam, kind of, through social media and things like that. And Bobby said kind of the same thing. You were looking at forums and all those kinds of things. Both of you guys live in fairly urban areas, but with the exception of a 5-year period in my life during my university years, I spent most of my life living in small towns. Carleton Place, Ontario, Athens, Ontario, probably places you guys haven't heard of. And that's good. There were no red bars or meetups, so really social media opened that world to me entirely. Actually, so tell me a little bit about how it is that you guys got so involved in social media.
It wasn't so much social media. There was no social media. It was really the forums, right? The original forums. when I was a kid, I had a friend that was heavy into computers and the Commodore 64 and the VIC-20s and the Amigas and the original, gaming. And at the time, there were these bulletin board services that you can log on, rudimentary, no internet, just log on and you can chat with other people and, send pictures, which would take 20 minutes to load. But so I remember that. And at the time in mid 90s, I was working for C.H. Robinson. I don't know if you guys know that company. It's a supply chain logistics third party company, a big one of the biggest in the world, in fact. And at the time, I was working in Montreal as a small office, and everyone had to work a Saturday a month. And, go to the office, it was dead. It was a Saturday. We just come in for damage control. So I was just playing on my computer and then I realized, what if I start looking up watches, because the internet was young, it was just starting. And I stumbled on WatchNet and Time Zone. And of course, these people that were already chatting on there were much more advanced collectors than I was. And a lot of them were doctors and lawyers and deeper pockets than I had, but they liked all the same watches as I did. And at the time, I had a Tudor Ranger 1970s model that I picked up off of classifieds in the newspaper for $200. And I had it for a while, and it was keeping horrible time, and it was janky, and the bracelet was really rattly. And I'd found BernardWatch.com. I don't know if you guys remember that. Well, I think they're still around. They're a retailer, or not a retailer, but a pre-owned watch dealer. And I saw something I thought I'd like, and then not too expensive, and I made an offer to trade it online in my first trade. And you guys are going to want to kill me now, but I traded my Tudor for a Krieger Tidal chronometer quartz. I don't know if you ever heard of the brand Krieger.
I can't say I've had it.
No.
Yeah, it was some dude in Miami who was a watch fanatic and decided to start his own brand. And they're quartz powered watches, and what he wanted was something to track the tides, because he was an avid yachtsman or boat dude, and I thought it looked really neat. And we made the trade, and I sent off my watch to Bernard Watch blindly through the mail, and crossed my fingers that something would come back, and it did. And I had it for a little while and realized how stupid that mistake was, and I went from there. And then that's how I started trading. At the time, there was no PayPal, there was no Venmo or any of these things. We used to, if I sold a watch on Time Zone or WatchNet, you'd receive postal money orders. And getting them from the U.S., you'd have to make sure you get the international ones, because if you got a regular postal mail order from the U.S., you couldn't cash that in Canada. So, that's how I got started until social media actually took off. I never got into the Facebook thing, but Instagram, I got in on pretty early.
You are definitely one of the OGs.
Yeah, but it feel old.
How about you, Bob?
For me, it was I had done the YouTube stuff not particularly successfully for about a year, and then my kids actually suggested I try Instagram. And I was amazed by the amount of people locally here, for one thing, let alone worldwide, that were into it and got involved in things like Red Bar. We were doing, at the time, the Raps were on the run. So I was hosting some Raptors games at my place with some of the watch guys earlier on. Some of my best friends are now people that I've met through Instagram, YouTube, all of this whole world. So it's been quite fun to connect with people through this hobby like that.
Robbie, you mentioned that Montreal is a metropolitan in a bigger city. There are not a lot of collectors here, to be honest. The stores and retailers barely know the products that they're selling, apart from maybe Chateau d'Ivoire and Birch downtown. But other than that, it's pretty sad, especially early on. And we did do some get-togethers early in the late 90s. We did the first one we did in Montreal. It was just three of us. It was during a snowstorm. We walked through the snow to one store to another and visited stuff. And then we had smoked meat at Rubens downtown. Second one, we had a bunch more people. We had some people that came from Vermont. Roger Pinnock, who was a lawyer in Toronto, came down by train and brought a box full of watches for us to fondle and gawk over. That was a lot of fun. But the red bars haven't caught on here. I think there's two Instagram Red Bar Montreal accounts, and they're both inactive. And I don't know what's going on here. I know there's one in Ottawa. I've been invited to go and talk, but I haven't had the opportunity to make that happen.
Well, I've been to the one in Ottawa, and it's definitely full of a really interesting group of people for sure. And like you say, there's usually somebody who brings an enormous watch box with them, and it's got everything you've ever wanted to see in it. That's always very interesting, for sure. So guys, I mean, outside of watches, you guys have other interests and other pursuits. What might we hear moving forward with this show?
For me, so I'm kind of the same with Roby with the whole camera thing. I'm a bit of a gear nut. I maybe don't have quite the skill level as Brent, but I'm trying. So that's a huge rabbit hole. I probably take in more social media content related to cameras actually than watches at the moment. So that's a big one. My wife and I are passionate about travel. We did a 50-day European trip last year, which was amazing, through Portugal, Spain, and Italy, and hopefully we'll be doing some more travel here soon. So that's a huge one for us, for sure.
50 days, that's amazing.
It was quite the thing. We went without a plan. We started in Portugal, and the Portugal was actually kind of an afterthought. And towards the end of the trip, we were missing it, so we actually ended our trip back in Portugal. But yeah, it was an amazing time. I have videos of it all. If anybody's interested, you can check it out on the YouTube channel. But
well, that's interesting what you say about Portugal, because if my wife were to choose one country other than Canada to live, I'm sure that it would be Portugal at the top of that list.
Have you been?
Oh yeah, we were there. I think now it's quite a while ago, probably about 20 years ago.
We'd like to go back because it was sort of quick, just a quick part of the trip at the start and tail end of that long trip. But I'd like to go back and visit Porto again, maybe hit the Douro Valley. We didn't get into the country. We were sort of stuck in the cities in Porto, and then on the tail end of the trip, Lisbon. But we loved it there.
Fantastic. So Mark, tell us a little bit about some of the things you're into.
Honestly, watches consumes a lot of my thinking and enjoyment, and as far as hobbies is concerned. I'm pretty much into fitness. I do like going hiking. I live in a very forested area outside of Montreal, to the west of Montreal. So we have forest trails here. So there's a lot of hiking and doing a lot of outdoor stuff. But watches is my main thing. Writing is also something I really enjoy. And with the work with Worn and Wound is keeping me pretty busy, and I love it. How about you, Roby?
I'm a reader and a writer, of course, and obviously, as you guys have mentioned, photography is a huge interest as well. But many of those things, they tie into my life with watches. So outside those pursuits, like Bob, I love to travel. My wife and I have probably been to around 35 countries around the world. Some of them we've gone back to 5-6 times. We've been to Nicaragua 7 times. It's just, I think prior to sort of falling down the rabbit hole of both photography and watches, that was probably where most of our disposable income went. It's only really that break that was caused by COVID that sort of shut us down for a while, but we were picking it up again. So yeah, travel, absolutely. But also, I really enjoy hiking, especially in the mountains. I'm kind of slowly working my way through the 46 high peaks of the Adirondacks. The New York State is just south of me.
We went to Table Chasm just a couple of weeks ago. It was fantastic.
Great place. Yeah. I love stillwater kayaking too, but probably, my most recent hobby, another deep dive literally, is scuba. And in particular, I like wreck diving.
I've always wanted to learn. That's one of the bucket list.
I was just going to ask, Roby, how long have you had your certification? Because it seemed like that all of a sudden started appearing on your social media, this dive stuff. Or is that something you've been into for a while?
It was something that I started back in 2018, just in a pool. I'm kind of claustrophobic, so I wanted to know, is this something I could even dream of pursuing? So my son and I, he was in grade 10 at the time, and he had an exchange student from Spain living with us. And so the three of us just went and did an exploratory thing in a pool, and I loved it, and I couldn't believe it. But then, as we all know, COVID kind of stepped in, and that went on the back burner. So it's only been about 2.5 years since I've had my actual certification. Fortunately, I live in a really great area of the world for scuba diving, like the Thousand Islands. So on the doorstep of the Great Lakes, there are so many wrecks in that area.
World's best freshwater diving in the world. It's great visibility. A little cold though, I think. Eh?
The lakes are cold, but there's no thermocline in the river. So if it's 21 degrees on the surface, it's 21 degrees on the bottom. So for that purpose, the St. Lawrence River is amazing. Unfortunately, because of the current, it's not as visible as, let's say, the Great Lakes are. Like, I went diving in Tobermory last year, and the waters were crystalline, absolutely gorgeous. You could see probably 10 meters easy when you were on the bottom. So that's a lot of fun fishing.
Let me just interrupt you 1 second, just in case we have listeners at some point. We'll have listeners, I guess. Listening to us from outside of Canada, in the U.S., we are using Celsius and meters and kilometers. We're Canadians. So if you're hearing us talk about 20-degree water, it's not Fahrenheit.
I just spit my water out there. Sorry.
Literally. Oh, my word. So at the Calibrated Risk, actually, we just had a watch auction in support of Save Ontario Ships. We raised $380 to help support the preservation of Ontario's marine heritage, thanks to a really generous bidder from Singapore, and also the backing of RZD watches. I think all three of us are familiar with RZD watches. They donated as a Resolute Pro to the auction, so that was fantastic.
Amazing. That's great to hear. Congratulations.
Thanks. So, gentlemen, I guess we hope as we move forward here with this podcast that we're going to be discussing a lot of watches. It looks like a lot of travel and a lot of hiking and a lot of outdoor activity, which is great. It's so wonderful to see that the three of us are in tune on those kinds of things, etc. So I don't know, like maybe we could finish off with something maybe that we feel like we have learned from our collecting journeys to this point, because all of us are of a certain age. Maybe
are you calling me old? Because I am, but it's...
I was trying to be polite about that, but can you give us a bit of wisdom?
Honestly, it's to find the little joys, right? Initially, when you first start collecting, you go from, like we talked about before, Timex, Casios, and then the Citizens and Seikos, and it all leads up to bigger and more expensive watches. Try to enjoy what you have on the wrist. Try to find the little things that make you happy. This little Hamilton, and just so that we're clear, it's the Hamilton khaki Expedition in 41 millimeters. It's not an expensive watch. Well, expensive for muggles, other people are not into the industry, but for the rest of us, not very expensive. But boy, I'm really getting a lot of enjoyment out of it. Even though I have a Grand Seiko upstairs in the watch box right now. Just having a lot of fun. So just try to enjoy them and appreciate the little things. That's my little advice.
For me, it's been, I used to always have in my head that, like, let's tick a box of having a dress watch, a diver, that sort of a thing. And maybe not have so much overlap, but I like certain style of watches. I could have 2 or 3, maybe GMTs, or it's just like Mark says, it's just a matter of buying and watches that you enjoy. Like,
yeah,
it's a
where we'll enjoy them.
Yeah. They don't get caught up in the hype. Buy what you like. It's as simple as that. There is a bit of a challenge early on for people, if there's people that are new to collecting. Maybe you don't know what you like, and
you gotta try it out, right? Yeah, it's true. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I went through that. I now know kind of what I look for in a watch and what I enjoy in a watch, and just go with those types of watches. Yeah.
I've noticed that the further along the watch journey you get, the less it is about acquiring and the more it is about appreciating. And, there's a lot of watches out there. And I think in the early days, I was, just acquiring, just buying each thing. I can appreciate it for what it is. And I don't have to, walk out of the store with it, for example, which stands to reason. If you go to a car show, for instance, and you come across a 1967 Corvette L88, you don't feel like you have to leave the car show with it. So,
yeah,
I feel that.
That's true.
It may be an unfortunate truth to authorized dealers that we don't always have to buy, but But I find that more and more, it's just fun to appreciate the watch for what it is. It's engineering, it's aesthetic, and not feel like I have to possess it.
Yeah,
And
that's a good.
again, wear them. At least they're not just, things to look at in a box. Enjoy them. Let them build memories with you. Each scratch is a battle scar or a memory that something you did with the watch, an adventure, or playing with your kid, or a door jam. It doesn't matter. It's part of owning the experience. That's what it's all about, I think.
I totally agree. All right, gentlemen. Well, this has been a kind of fun start to things, getting to know each other a little bit better, and sort of figuring out our watch collecting journeys. I'd like to maybe throw it back to the listeners, and hey guys, contact us, reach out, tell us a little bit about what it is that got you into watches, why watches, maybe even share a little bit about what else it is that you do. So we'll leave an email in the show notes there, and we would really look forward to your comments and your questions. You guys want to add anything?
Yeah, please do share with us. We understand there's a lot of podcasts out there, a lot of watch-related podcasts. We're hoping to bring a different voice, older gentlemen that have been around the block, experience-wise, life-wise, and have, some stories to tell, and hopefully share some adventures, and we hope for that to be interactive with you guys.
Yeah, and I think if anybody has any maybe particular topics they'd like us to cover, we'd be more than open to doing that. We also plan to have some guests on the show here eventually too. We're still working out some of the kinks technically, as this is our first one, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, you got think of your father's trying to work out electronics. This is what's happening right now.
Exactly.
Setting the damn clock on the VCR.
Exactly.
It's been a real pleasure chatting with you this morning. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
You as well.
we should before we leave, we should probably let everybody know where they can find us on socials. Bob?
For me, at Time to Go 1978 on Instagram, and if you search Time to Go Travel and Timepieces, you can find me on YouTube.
Robbie?
Caliber 321 on Instagram, and you can check out the website at thecalibratedwrist.com. There's even a brand new YouTube channel that is of the same name, The Calibrated Wrist. So hope to see you there.
Awesome. I'm Mark Levesque. You can look up my name on Worn & Wound to find a lot of the work that I do there. I also go by Mark, at Mark Time to Watch, and Mark with a C, and 2 is the number, on Instagram and everywhere else on socials, mainly Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time. And then I'd like to invite everybody, if no one's been there, Worn & Wound has a Slack community. So if anybody's interested, hit up the people at Worn & Wound, or hit me up and I'll get you an invite. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people there. There's about 1,000 members, and it's how the forums used to be. There's no showing off or flexing. It's more like, enjoying it, talking about new releases, where we're at, wrist checks. It's a lot of fun like the old days. So if anybody's interested, hit me up.
That sounds great. Okay. Once again, awesome. Great talking with you guys.
All right. Great talking to you guys.
Well, all right, we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Bye now.